Okay.
Hi, this is Bobby Kuhn, and I'm going to interview my roommate, John Stahl. We have a lot of interesting conversations about our belief systems. John claims to be an atheist, and I strongly disagree with that because I am a Christian. And I just wanted to interview him and ask him a couple questions. So here we go. John, how do you explain the high degree of design and order in the universe if there is no God?
There isn't a high degree of design or order. It just seems that way because we're used to it. Uh, the world seems familiar and ordered because we're born into it, and it's all we really ever know. But it's chaotic. We try to make our lives as ordered as possible, but it's not like that. It's an illusion.
Okay. On to the next question. How do you account for the vast archaeological documentation of biblical stories, places, and people?
The places and people can still have existed. It doesn't say anything about believing in God.
Okay.
I don't.
So you think
My
that
beef
the
isn't
Bible
with Christianity. It's just with religion.
you think that the Bible is historically correct?
Well, some of it is obviously correct, and some of it's obviously false. But it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
You're gonna believe whatever.
Do you believe that Jesus existed and that he wasn't the Son of God, or do you believe that he didn't exist at all?
I really don't have enough evidence to make an informed decision about that, but there are a lot of stories around that 1,000-year period around the Mediterranean where the Son of God died, rose from the dead. He raised people from the dead. He walked on water. He was called the sheep, the lamb, the way, the light. And Jesus wasn't the first one, so he's just the one that survived.
Interesting. How do you explain that the prophet Daniel prophesied the exact year when Christ would be presented as Messiah, and also prophesies that the temple would be destroyed afterwards over 500 years in advance? That's from Daniel 9:24 through 27.
Is Daniel in the Old Testament or the New Testament?
The Old.
Okay, is Jesus in the Old Testament or the New Testament?
The New.
We're assuming here that the people that wrote the New Testament read the Old Testament. It's very easy to make prophecies fit if you have the pen in your hand.
Okay. If man is nothing but the random arrangement of molecules, what motivates you to care and to live honorably in the world?
Man is a lot more than a random accumulation of molecules. We're pretty efficient machines. We've been put together pretty well, and we all have basic rights given to us either by God or by our own nature, really. And everyone's entitled to things like freedom and happiness that they don't get. And morality doesn't just come from knowing that God's there and knowing that if you do something wrong, then you're going to go to hell. That's not moral. That's the opposite of morality.
Okay, I agree. Is it possible that your unbelief in God is actually an unwillingness to submit to Him?
No, I submitted to God I haven't been an atheist my whole life.
Okay. When did you become an atheist?
I was around 14 when stuff started not making sense anymore. And just it's like a snowball.
So are you saying
Snowball
that you got to a point where you were smart enough that it didn't make any sense? Are you saying that Christians aren't smart enough to realize that they're wrong?
No, I think it's only like a type of person, really like a more introspective person, because Christians are generally focused on other people. What should we do with them? How do we convert them? And you never look inward at your beliefs and look how kind of fairy tale-ish they seem. in my opinion.
So you're saying that Christianity is like a fairy tale?
No, it's obviously respected by a billion people in the world, but if, say, Jack and the Beanstalk story was in the Bible and it was about a man going to find God, and the Jonah and the whale story was a fairy tale that we'd all been told was a fairy tale our whole lives, we would be defending the Jack and the Beanstalk story as a biblical truth and the Jonah story as a silly tale.
I can definitely see your point from that perspective, I guess. If Jesus didn't actually die and rise from the dead, how could he, in his condition, have circumvented all of the security measures in place at his tomb?
He was dead. You can't come back to life.
If he wasn't, so you're saying that once they put him in the tomb, he was dead forever?
Yeah,
He
it's
didn't
usually
come
how it
back
happens. I don't know. I know no people who've lived through death.
Okay. But his body wasn't there
Okay,
in
well,
the
someone
morning.
moved it. I mean, it's
If the
people move
authorities,
bodies.
if the authorities stole Jesus' body, why?
Well, obviously, it was a person that was going to become a martyr. Having the body of the martyr is very inspiring to the people. Then the Romans do not want to riot at this point because they know they've done something wrong. Pontius Pilate messed up. He should have just said no, and they want to hide this from the people.
Okay. Is your unbelief in a perfect God possibly the result of a bad experience with with an imperfect church, or a misunderstanding of the facts, and therefore an unfair rejection of God himself?
No, I think the idea of God is impossible. I don't understand how someone could be perfect. It defies the laws of all of our physics, and basically every scientific law we have is denied by the presence of God or by the existence of him. So I don't know why God could exist.
Interesting. If every effect has a cause, then what or who caused the universe?
This is more of a scientific question. I'm not well versed, but I am aware of the theory that two membranes from opposing dimensions, like 8th and 10th or something, met and created matter.
So where did they come from?
Well, I mean, we can only go so far back until there was no evidence, no one to document it, and then, or there's nothing to see anymore. And like, you can fill that in with God, but like eventually science is gonna figure out. Like, yeah, I don't know what happened, but like, that's what science does. It fills in the answers until there's nothing there that's a question anymore, and there won't be. God.
So can Christianity fill that answer?
Yeah, it
as
can
to
fill
how
it.
we got here?
It can fill it perfect. It fills it for a billion people, but is it the right answer? That's the question.
Nobody really knows for sure, I guess.
There will be a billion people
But-
though that'll tell you they know.
Yeah. I mean, well, they have faith that they know. Okay. How do you explain the countless people who have received miracles from God? Is it just a coincidence?
I think some of them probably really do think that they received a gift from God, and some of them have probably gone through some crazy things that maybe we can't explain right now. But I don't think 10 cases in about 100,000 of people claiming to have miracles and they're almost all lying, like 99% of them. That's not enough.
Okay.
It's just like, yeah, there's a couple things we can't explain, but soon we'll be able to explain them because we don't understand everything as well as we do right now. We'll understand it better later, in like 100 years. And we'll look back and think, wow, we were dumb for thinking that was like something spiritual. Like it was just this.
So you're saying the world operates in a different order than religion or science could explain?
I mean, religion can try to explain everything. Science can't explain everything ever. But science is going to be able to explain more and more every year. And 1,000 years ago, everyone thought the Earth was flat, but they were wrong. They just thought God created the Earth that way. We thought that Earth was the center of the universe because it said so in the Bible, and we all thought that even after science had proved it wrong for 1,000 years before that. We don't learn. Like, so it's going to take a while.
Yeah. So why do you think that people become Christians?
Because your family and everyone around you is a Christian. It tends to become infectious. Like, why is everyone in the Middle East a Muslim and everyone in the United States basically a Christian? Because that's where you grew up. You grew up in a Christian atmosphere. You become a Christian, and it's
But what
rare.
what about people who aren't surrounded by Christians?
Yeah, like every once in a while you see someone who like just decided they were going to be a Christian. But
Yeah.
you see 10,000 people in this country decide that they were going to be Muslims since 9/11. Like 10,000 people have just up and left the church
Yeah.
for Islam, which is amazing to me. But it's just some people do that.
There's just no explanation for it.
Well,
I mean,
I mean, there's. Okay, ask me again. We'll cut this. Ask me again. Go ahead.
why do you think people become Christians?
Okay. Basically, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling shitty, I get it. Like, Jesus is always going to be there for you, no matter what, and that's a nice feeling to have. Like, it probably feels amazing to like know that someone's always over your shoulder watching you, but like, you don't know that, and at the end of the day, you can't trust that feeling you have because you don't know if it's true or not, and it's not worth it. So where did I go with that? I just ramble.
It's okay. I think you explained it.
Did I? I don't remember.
You said that they become Christian so that they feel like somebody is on their journey with them.
Yeah, never alone. Always with some all-powerful helper who loves you infinitely.
Yeah.
That's a big part. That's an important thing. He cares about you.
I think this is going to be the last question. Is there any evidence that would satisfy you and persuade you to become a believer, or are you just going to believe what you want to believe?
No evidence makes anyone a believer. If you have evidence, you don't need belief because you have proof. Belief is not as good as knowing something, and I'd rather know. And so I'm just going to reserve judgment until I can.
So is there anything that would
Anything.
persuade you to know
I mean, if
that God is real?
Jesus would have to come back and say, I'm Jesus, and the whole world would have to say, like, you're right. And I would be like, well, I guess maybe there is Jesus. And people would have to start going to heaven. Like, and I would have to see it, for sure. Like, okay, all right.
Okay. I mean, I can obviously understand your point of view in some aspects, and I hope maybe you can understand some of mine. But thank you for the interview. It was interesting, and just give people a little bit of insight on our conversations on a daily basis. Thanks again for the interview, John.
No problem, Bob. Robbie.